You may have already heard about gender-based violence. It is one of the most pervasive, fundamental violations of human rights in the world. It is an unrelenting assault on human dignity. It is a threat to a person's physical and psychological integrity. It is discrimination and a huge obstacle to gender equality. Gender-based violence deprives a person from her sense of self-worth and it damages her self-esteem. Consequently, it can have serious health implications as it not only adversely affects one's physical health but one's mental health as well. Hello everyone, my name is Hamda Ajmal. I immigrated to Ireland from Pakistan 9 years ago. And today I'm going to talk about why gender-based violence is an important issue to deal within the European Union and how is the European Union been dealing with gender-based violence. I'm talking about this today because gender-based violence is a global issue that cannot and must not be ignored. Because even if Europe is considered to be one of the most gender-equal places in the world, in 2020 alone, 444 women across 10 EU states were killed by their intimate partners. And according to an estimate, 31% women have experienced one or more acts of physical violence since the age of 15. That is 1 in every 3 women. But not only it is devastating at a personal level, from an economic point of view, gender-based violence against women costs approximately 226 billion euros per year within the EU. Therefore, an urgent action is needed to tackle this. With these harrowing statistics in hand, we should really ask ourselves, what has the EU been doing to tackle this issue, and is it enough? The United Nations defines gender-based violence as an act of violence against women and girls based on their gender. It is an act that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual or mental harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether it occurs in public life or private life. Gender-based violence is directed against a person because of that person's gender. It is the violence that affects persons of particular gender disproportionately. The terms gender-based violence and violence against women have been used interchangeably because it has been widely acknowledged that the most gender-based violence victims are women and girls, and the perpetrators are mostly men. However, gender-based violence can also be defined as violent behavior towards people who do not conform to the customary traditional behaviors associated with masculinity and femininity. Therefore, gender-based violence can take many forms. It includes intimate partner violence, also known as domestic violence, sexual violence, psychological violence, economic violence, and other issues, for example, human trafficking, honor killings, child marriages, and female genital mutilation. When it comes to the EU, in the 2021 Global Gender Gap Index ranking, EU countries held the topmost spots for gender equality, with Finland, Sweden, Lithuania, and Ireland among the top 10. However, following what I was mentioning in the introduction, it is also estimated that 1 in 20 women has been raped in the EU since the age of 15. That is around 5% women. Besides, 1 in 2 women has experienced sexual harassment and 1 in 5 has experienced stalking. Another appalling statistic before the Brexit, 43% women in 28 EU countries had experienced some form of psychological violence by an intimate partner. 95% of the human trafficking victims in the EU are women. Furthermore, at least 600,000 women in the EU are victims of female genital mutilation. Nonetheless, let us not forget that gender-based violence remains regrettably underreported. So these stats may only be the tip of the iceberg. But let's go back in 2017 when the EU signed the Istanbul Convention, which is a benchmark for international standards addressing violence against women through measures aimed at preventing violence, protecting victims, and prosecuting the perpetrators. And this convention is the first legally binding, meaning the states which have signed to it are legally bound by its provisions once it enters into force. Besides, it recognizes violence against women as human rights violation. It aims to bring a societal change by challenging acceptance or denial of such behavior and gender stereotyping, and it calls on men and boys as key actors in such a process. Before 2017, there was no specific legal instrument to address violence against women and domestic violence at the EU level. That is why joining the Istanbul Convention was a major step forward in making Europe a safer place for women and girls. And we have to acknowledge that the EU has played an active role to promote the elimination of female genital mutilation. This includes raising awareness, advocating for better legal protection, and improved access to support for victims, and instilling a social change. Besides, criminalization of FGM is also required under the Istanbul Convention, and consequently, FGM is a classed crime in all EU member states. When it comes to what the European Parliament has recently done, it has adopted two legislative initiative resolutions. One in September 2021, where the Parliament called for gender-based violence to be added to the list of serious crimes. Another one in December 2021, calling on the Commission to use its forthcoming proposal for a directive on combating gender-based violence to criminalize gender-based cyber violence as a cornerstone for the harmonization of existing and future legal acts. In the end, something we all must agree is that there is no price on human life, pain and suffering, and the money spent on supporting victims is not enough, and there is a need for further investment in services and activities that prevent violence against women, support and protect the victims. Besides, domestic violence shot up during the COVID-19 pandemic, and gender-based violence and violence against women have also been termed as shadow pandemic because we saw an unprecedented surge in the gender-based violence cases. Women and girls across the EU continue to face violence, and the pandemic has made this flagrant human abuse even worse. However, violence against women was already widespread before the pandemic, and that is why authorities at all levels must step up together to effectively eradicate gender-based violence. Currently, only 21 EU countries have ratified the Istanbul Convention, and the remaining countries must follow the suit without further delay. Police, judiciary, and health sectors must be provided with adequate resources and relevant training. And above all, EU must address the lack of inclusion of migrant-specific issues in the national discourse of gender-based violence.